Hello and welcome to Just Painting for Fun and Money. Here's the materials you'll need eventually for the final painting. I'm not going to go into detail on here now because hold on there. This video isn't about painting, it's about getting ready to paint a commission. A friend asked me to paint a portrait of his house, and I've done many of these over the years. Here's a few samples. The art is a little different when you're painting something like this, a commission. You want it to be precise. You want the perspective needs to look right. The colors need to look close. Um, and you still need to make it into a painting. It needs to have interest. Done some miniature houses as well. These are only 2 inches on one side, 3 inches on the other. These two. This one's a little larger. It's 4 inches by 6 inches, I believe. Neuschwanstein Castle. Okay, if I was unfamiliar with the house I was going to paint, I would want to visit the site and either paint it on site or take photos to work from. And I've been to my friend's house and knew somewhat how the house looked, how it sat in the landscape and what the surroundings were like. I decided I could do the painting from photos. I asked my friend to send photos from his favorite angle and several other angles. He sent, here's one from the left corner, uh, just right of center, and a little further to the left, or a little further to the right, rather, of center. And here's a closer view, right to the right of center, and that's the one I chose. Now, there's a few problems. The point of view and hidden right side make the perspective look wrong. There's some other problems too. Um, there's a lot of foreground, too much for my taste in this particular instance. The house is in the upper third of the photo. It could work, but to me, it's not as interesting this way. So number 2, preparing the photo, the reference photo. First, I cropped the image in my um, Photoshop type program. The problem is that the crop placed it in the middle of the painting, or middle of the image in this case. Now I could go on with it like that, it would be all right. But I use my photo editing software again to add space to the upper third. You see that white band? I added that. Slightly larger than the total size that I need the painting to become. I use the rotate function to correct the perspective and square the edge of the building to the edge of the photo. Then I used the paint function to add missing sky and cropped out the edges. There you go. Now we add a grid. Grids are useful if you want an accurate image reproduction. Here's how I make one using my photo manipulation software, which is PaintShop Pro. In your photo editing software, you use resize to make the image the size of the canvas that you're going to be using, or slightly larger if you still need to crop it. Then I crop it down to the size, which in my case was 24 by 18. You set your grid preferences in the editing software. I use red for the color, and in this case I used a 1/2 inch grid length and width. And my program doesn't allow printing of the grid, so when viewing I use print screen. Then I paste the print screen image into my editing software, and I crop that to the edge of the window. I leave enough margin on that I can write in numbers alongside of the grid for the grid markings. I'm skipping every other line since I'm using 1/2 inch. I mark it 1 to 24 across the top and 1 to 18 down the edges. Here's how we apply the grid. You see the numbers there, every other one marked? There's a space in between them, you see, and 23 to 24 there at the end. Now we have our gridded image. Some people consider using a grid cheating. There aren't any rules in art. I can draw it freehand. I know how to do it. I've been drawing for years. And I would make the same type of visual relationships I'm going to be using with grid, such as how far the tree is on the large bushes on the right side. You see, by counting the grids, I know exactly how far to go. The grid gives me a value on the relationships that I would look for as I'm drawing anyway, so I can more quickly get them drawn on the canvas. It's a time saver for me, such as the dimensions of the second floor. Left wall should be so many inches from the left side of the painting, because I'm just counting the marks on the grid. You can manually add a grid to the drawing if your software doesn't allow for that. You just print out the photo and use a ruler or something, mark down the edges, and then draw lines between your marks. Just make sure the marks are straight and equal. You can also print the photo on grid paper, maybe. As I said, there are no rules. You can print out a full-size photo and trace it if you want. Put chalk on the back of the photo and or pastels, the chalky pastels, and you can trace it right onto the canvas if you want. The idea is just to get a good, accurate drawing on the canvas. Now here I'm beginning to mark. I put 24 marks across the top to mark the inch marks, and that allows me to just slide the ruler over to the mark that I need, and I do it down the sides too. And then I go along and I look at the gridded photo to find out where I need to put these tick marks on my drawing or on my canvas. So I'm starting off with an 8.5 or so inch photo with a grid on it. I'm putting that grid, I'm transferring that gridded photo to a 24 by 18 inch painting. So the inch marks give me the ability to make that translation from the small photo to the canvas. Once I've drawn the dots according to the grid, then I connect the dots freehand. Once that's done, I use a workable fixative, which is a clear spray that you spray over top of a drawing so that the graphite doesn't smear when you're working it. The drawing's done so far. Notice that the bushes and trees I haven't drawn in. I'll put them in later when I'm painting. There you can see it a little closer. It looks slanted right now because of the angle that it's being photoed from, videoed from. And so now we paint, sort of. What I mean by sort of is I select a color that contrasts most of the colors in the photo. Often in landscapes, I'll use alizarin crimson because of the reddish hue contrasts the greens. In this case, I chose the dioxazine purple because the purple contrasts the yellowish hues of the house. What I'm going to do is use the dioxazine purple to outline exactly where I drew with the pencil. This is just the ability to make sure that that it becomes part of the painting. Occasionally I like to let some of the outlines show, so I want it painted on there. Now look at how I do the vertical lines here, how I'm painting these lines for the windows. That's a trick I learned in commercial art school. It's not actually, it doesn't have to be the vertical lines, it's parallel lines. You're painting the parallel lines first. By doing that, it it allows you to paint them faster and more accurate. Get the Because once you've started painting the angle, it's just easier to keep going. See how fast I'm able to do that? Actually, this is um, 8 times the speed, I believe, but still, it's with very little hesitation that I put those lines in there. And again, it's parallel lines. You see, I'm doing the parallel ground lines there. Do the top and the bottom to give me a starting and stopping point. They do that in lettering with in commercial art school. You learn to do lettering that look better just by doing the verticals first. Then we go back in and do any lines with the curves, like in a letter B or a letter R. Come back in and do the curves later. Now we're establishing a few values. I know the windows are going to be dark and the shutters on this house are dark. A few shadows on the trees. And now we're ready to paint. This painting is continued in part 2. Here we are so far. Thank you for watching.